All right, lesson 94, special types of poetry. So there's other types of poetry other than the usual poems that you were studying so far. And one of these is Bible poetry. Bible poetry doesn't have rhythm and rhyme, often because it was translated from another language, but it does have, um, still has some poetic characteristics. I'll let you read most of your section here under Bible poetry for yourself. What I would like to look at is the three types of Bible poetry that they teach you in the lesson: synonymous, antithetic, and synthetic. So, synonymous parallelism occurs when parallel lines express similar thoughts. So, Psalms 100, no, 119 is full of these. So, here they have a selection out of Psalm 19. So it says, "The law of the Lord is perfect, converting the soul. The testimony of the Lord is sure, making wise the simple. The statutes of the Lord are right, and then the commandment of the Lord is pure, enlightening the eyes." So you can see how it keeps repeating itself, using a little different words to say basically the same thing. That's synonymous, all right? So um, we'll look at it again a little bit later. But when it says something in one line and then repeats it again with maybe a little different wording, that's synonymous. And you can remember that because synonyms are two words that sound alike. Um, Maybe you can use that to remember what's what. Then we have antithetic parallelism, and that's when parallel lines express opposite thoughts. So it might say, a wise man does this, and a foolish man does this. Or those who obey the Lord do this, and the evil, this happens to them. It compares two opposites line after line. So the example they give you here is, "It is as sport to a fool to do mischief." So we're talking about a fool. The next line says, "But a man of understanding hath wisdom." Talks about a wise man. That's antithetic, all right? And here again, anti means opposite, so that's how you can remember. Antithetic um, lines with opposite thoughts, and synonyms, lines with similar thought. And then we have synthetic, which is probably the hardest one to find. Synthetic parallelism occurs when parallel lines or lines right after each other express thoughts that build one upon another. Synthetic means to put together things that are synthetic materials, or when they put more than one kind of thing together to come up with it. In fact, the Greek words for synthetic means to put together. So they give you an example here. "The Lord is my strength and my shield. My heart trusted in him, and I am helped. Therefore my heart greatly rejoiceth, and my song will praise him." So in the first part, it talks about him. So the Lord is strong, so I trust in him, and then my heart rejoices, and now with the song I'll praise him. It keeps building. First, the Lord is your strength. Since he's your strength, you trust in him. Since you trust in him, your heart's rejoicing. Since your heart's rejoicing, you're singing. And you see how it keeps building on itself. Each line is progressing, or because of the first line, um, the next thing happens. That's synthetic. Synthetic is when lines build on each other. All right. Then we have blank verse and free verse. Now, this is not talking about Bible poetry anymore. Blank verse has rhythm but has no rhyme, and free verse doesn't have either. Yet both are called poetry because they have deeper qualities of poetry. And you might think these kinds would be easier to write than rhyming poetry, but not necessarily. So Here's a following example of blank verse. Every morning lean thine arms awhile upon the window sill of heaven, and gaze upon thy Lord. Then, with the vision in thy heart, turn strong to meet thy day. So, and these can be kind of hard to find and write. So basically, normal poetry is identified by the rhythm and the rhyme, and you try to work in poetic things like, well, the different things we talked about the days before, the onomatopoeia and the figures of speech and all that. These kinds of poetry, blank verse and free verse, don't use rhythm and rhyme to make it poetry, so the content has to be 100% or a lot poetic. Free verse, fog. The fog comes on little cat feet. It sits looking over harbor and city on silent haunches and then moves on. So you can see there's no rhythm and rhyme, but there is a lot of poetic expressions. We have the fog personified as a cat, and so on and so forth. So that's blank verse and free verse. Blank verse has rhythm with no rhyme. Free verse doesn't have either. Then you have a ballad. A ballad is a narrative poem that contains many stanzas. It usually has 4-line stanzas and alternate between iambic tetrameter and iambic trimeter. So I don't know if you remember how to count meters in a poem, but usually these ballads like tell a story basically. So the one they have in the book is The Unbarred Door. When on America's eastern plain. Now let me just show you in case you forget how to count feet or meters in poetry. When on America's eastern plains still roamed her forest child. So, when on America's eastern plain still roamed her forest child. When you count feet in a poem, you count the accents. Okay. So this one is 4, so that's a tetrameter. And this one is 1, 2, 3, that's a trimeter. Sometimes it can be confusing because you want to count the whole foot. In this case it works out, but it doesn't always. And therefore, when you count feet, and it's iambic because it's, and that's iambic. So if it would happen to come out so that it wasn't like full feet, like if it would end on like an unaccented there, that would be 2. So an iambic, yeah. So basically when you're counting meters, you want to count all the accents, and that will tell you how many meters are in your line. And 3 is a trimeter, 4 is a tetrameter. You can go back to that lesson to figure out more about that. That's not what this is about. This is about a ballad. A ballad is usually a story, has lots of short, little 4-line stanzas. Oh, there's some other common ones, but I can't think of them right now. So they have the example here in the lesson. Then we have another kind of poetry, and that's called a quatrain. All right. A quatrain, it develops a theme in a 4-line stanza. So the whole thing is done in 4 lines. So, and this one can be hard to write because you have to take very careful thought and write a complete worthwhile quatrain. So in other words, to write a piece of poetry that's only 4 lines, but it portrays a worthwhile lesson in just 4 lines, it's pretty hard to get it all in. And they have one there in your lesson you can read. Then we have a sonnet. A sonnet. A sonnet is a 14-line poem written in iambic pentameter. All right. So they might appear in 2 stanzas of 8 lines. Well, I guess it would be one with 8 and one with 6. So an 8-line, and then a 6-line. Or it might just be one solid 14-line poem. But again, it's in order to get a complete thing in only and exactly 14 lines is the trick behind a sonnet. Sonnets come in different rhyming patterns, but they're usually iambic and pentameter, so I guess that would be 5 feet. So let me, doing the one in your lesson. Let me but do my work from day to day. Yeah, pentameter, iambic pentameter. So now to your lesson. Part A. Write which of the 3 kinds of parallelism is used in each of the selections. So if you remember, we have synonymous, antithetic, and synthetic. Synonymous, 2 lines, they say the same thing. Antithetic, 2 lines say opposite things. Synthetic, they build on each other. So let me just grab a Bible here and flip to 1 or 2 of these and show you how it works. Alright, so Psalms 9:8. And he shall judge the world in righteousness, he shall minister judgment to the people in uprightness. Alright, so first line says, he will judge the world in righteousness. The second line says he will minister judgment to the people in uprightness. Saying the same thing, just 2 little bit different ways. So A1 is going to be synonymous. All right. Now, let's do another one. How about we do number 6? Proverbs 15:11. All right. And that says, 15:11 says, "Hell and destruction are before the Lord. How much more then these the hearts of the children of men?" Hell and destruction are before the Lord. How much more then the hearts of the children of men? So is the second half building on the first half? Is it saying the same thing as the first half, or is it saying the opposite? Well, in this case, it's building. So it's saying this is this way, so how much more is this? That's synthetic. All right? Because it's building on it. All right, I think you'll find synonymous and antithetic you can pick out. Synthetic will be a little harder, but maybe one of the clues that it's synthetic will be the fact that it's not one of the other 2. Also, if it builds on itself, that's the other way. Part B, write a short stanza of blank verse or free verse on one of the subjects. So this is probably going to be one of your hardest parts, even though it sounds maybe easy. So you're going to write just a short, a stanza or so on one of these numbers, 1 to 6. It's supposed to be blank or free, so either it can have some rhythm but no rhyme, or else it can't have rhythm and rhyme. But either way, it must have poetic characteristics that makes it poetry. All right, so it must have figures of speech or that kind of thing. Then part C, write a quatrain of one of these subjects. So you're going to pick one of these 4 subjects and just write a complete 4-liner. All right, it has to be iambic, no, Doesn't have to be any of that. Sorry, it's a quatrain. It just has to be a 4-line stanza with rhythm and rhyme. All right, it's a quatrain, so just a 4-liner with rhythm and rhyme, and it has to be complete thought in it. All right. The review looks like it's pretty self-explanatory. So if you have any other questions on this lesson, you can feel free to ask.